Right. Welcome to Bleav in Clemson Football. I'm Will Vandervoort. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. As always, our producer, Alex Dodd, is joining us. He's now in the official producer spot. Welcome, Alex. You're now officially part of Bleav in Clemson Football. How you doing?
Good. It's good to be a part of it. Sounds like we both lost our voices this weekend. You at the Steelers game, I presume.
Yes, me at the Steelers game. Sorry, I'm having a camera issue. Me at the Steelers game. Went to Atlanta this past weekend. Finally got to see a win in Atlanta because it had been a dry spell for me with my Pirates losing when I went to watch the Pirates play, and then I went and watched the Braves play a game one day. They got beat. They were playing the Nationals, and then I went and watched Clemson get beat to Georgia there, and so finally it was the Pittsburgh Steelers that came through and won a game that I went and watched in Atlanta.
You exercised the curse of Atlanta, so that's good to be over the hump there.
I did. So appreciate all you guys joining us. We got a pretty good jam-packed show today. Apologize for last week. I was not feeling too good, so we were unable to go on. My apologies on that one. But when the body says you got to rest, you rest, and so I had no choice. So anyway, today, just want to give you a heads up on what we're going to be doing today. We're going to have some news and notes. Got some news coming out of Clemson involving several things, and we'll get to that here in just a second. We're also going to have former Clemson running back Reggie Merriweather, now with the Clemson Sports Network as a color analyst. He does a great job with Tim Beret and Don Munson each and every week. Reggie's going to join us around 6:15. So stay tuned to that. He's going to join us for a couple segments and talk Clemson football with us. So he'll be coming on. And then if we have time, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on around the ACC. Going to talk about Notre Dame and maybe give you some picks as before we get out of here this week as well. So we got a big show. But before we do all that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors. But first of all, betonline.ag. BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports props and stuff like that. If you just go over to betonline.ag and check out their website, especially right now, they got with NFL started. You got all kinds of props there for that. You got the games bet on as well as they got the latest lines, and they got still money lines on if you want to bet, like, who do you think is going to play in the national championship game in college football? Who do you think is going to make the college football playoff? You can still jump on those as well. BetOnline is your number one source for all things football, NFL, college football, and also for your sports season, because basketball is about to get rained up. So you'll have the NBA here starting pretty soon. Alex loves the NBA, so he'll be all.
Yeah, me and Will are just the biggest NBA fans that you're going to find in the universe. We watch every game, the league pass and everything in between.
Yeah, everything. So get on over there to betonline.ag and check them out. Betonline.ag, where the game begins. Also want to give a shout out to Robert McRae and the folks at the ClemsonInsider.com for always sponsoring us and giving us a shout out, an opportunity to use their platform on their YouTube channels and Facebook pages. We do appreciate that. You can go to the Clemson Insider to get all the latest Clemson athletics and recruiting news. No one does it better than the Clemson Insider. That's where you'll find my work as well. So we appreciate you coming over there checking us out. So get to some news and notes here today. As you know, I got this guy named Cade Klubnik had a pretty good game last week, Alex, and he was named today. The Walter Camp Foundation announced Tuesday that Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik has been named as its National Offensive Player of the Week for his record-setting performance in the Clemson 66-20 win against Appalachia State on Saturday. The junior was also named the Davey O'Brien National Quarterback of the Week as well. Klubnik was as well named ACC Quarterback of the Week, I should say. They used to do Players of the Week, but now they
and he was the quarterback of the
week. Yeah, which is a bunch of malarkey.
The National Quarterback of the Week, National Offensive Player of the Week, but somehow ACC Quarterback of the Week. But I think that's kind of how these awards in the ACC are going to go for a while. For Clemson
ACC,
players.
No, it's not just that. It's just the ACC likes everybody gets a trophy. That's how they are. Like they just can't. They just will not. I'm just leave it there. Everybody gets a trophy. in the ACC. So basically, but he went for 24 of 26, completed almost 93% of his passes in that game. It's the third best mark in Clemson history. He's also the first Clemson quarterback he set the Clemson passing record for efficiency with his 5 touchdown passes, no interceptions. He ran for 2 touchdowns as well, threw for 378 yards. One of the greatest performances we've ever seen by a Clemson quarterback, without a doubt. And it is the greatest performance in college football in the last 25 years for a quarterback. Alex, I don't know what you're doing 25 years ago, but that was a long time ago, buddy. And I mean, you were what, one?
I was just goo-gooing and gaga-ing. I
Yeah.
wasn't, I was a year old. I didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah. So, and what I mean by that is his quarterback rating was the best quarterback rating according to ESPN Stats and Info since 2000. So that's something else, that here he was, last week we were wondering, man, what are they going to do on offense? And all of a sudden, pow, 5 touchdowns later, here they are.
Yeah, I mean, really, we talked about how us in our private conversations talked about how we needed to see the Clemson offense get in a rhythm early in this game. I talked to somebody on staff, and they were saying the same thing, that they wanted to get the offense going early. And I don't know if you can get it going earlier than the third play of the game, throwing a 74-yard touchdown pass to Bryant Wesco, his introduction to the Clemson faithful in a big way, and then it just kept going from there. I mean, the offense was clicking on all cylinders. I think every Clemson fan breathed a sigh of relief in a big way with this game this past weekend. You're playing a group of 5 opponent, but man, it's hard to do that against air, what Cade Klubnik did on Saturday.
Exactly. Who did that touchdown remind you of when he scored that touchdown on just the third play of the game, by the way?
Sammy Watkins.
There you go.
That's the only freshman in my lifetime that's on his first touch in Death Valley has gone to the house for a big gain. And man, I mean, Cade Klubnik too. Talk about Cade Klubnik on that play. If you look at his release point when he let go of the football, there were 3 App State players around Bryant Wesco, but he made the right read and saw that he was going to torch him, and boy did he.
Yeah, he did. And that's the thing that he did in this game. He was very decisive on what he was going to do. And we'll get into a little bit of that more here with Reggie here in a minute. But yeah, just a great performance by Cade Klubnik, and just really that offense just looked totally different. The best we've seen in 5 years, without a doubt. Other news and notes, we spoke with Dabo Swinney. When I say we, I mean the media last night. We spoke with Dabo Swinney, and he gave us some injury updates. First off, if you haven't heard, Peter Woods is day-to-day. If you remember, he got chop blocked illegally. Dabo Swinney wasn't happy about it. He sent the tape to the ACC. We asked Dabo, what does that mean when you send the tape to the ACC? Well, basically, it's just a slap on the wrist.
Hey, guys, you need to see this next time. It's a huge disciplinary measure by the conference. When you
I love Dabo's answer on that, though. It was pretty good. So if you hadn't heard that, go back and listen to that audio if you can find it somewhere. Somebody posted it. So Peter Woods is day-to-day. Wide receiver Tyler Brown, he also gave an update on. He is day-to-day as well. As you recall, he hurt his ankle there in the game against App State. So, and then the bad news, the worst news of the whole day is, and we pretty much probably knew it when we saw it on Saturday, was he's sitting on the sideline on crutches and by himself on the bench. And, you could just tell he knew then that it wasn't going to be good news. But linebacker Kobe McLeod is out for the season with an injury. Unfortunately for him, that's a tough thing to do, just second game of the season. And he had such a good spring and such a good fall camp, and was really actually played well against Georgia, I thought. And then this game played well early on. But sometimes this happens. It's the nature of the game. Really sad for him. Kind of got to talk about what that means for Clemson at linebacker. Well, I'll tell you what it means. It means number 47 is going to get a lot of playing time. Yep. That's what it means, right, Alex? I mean, he's going to have to step up now and be that guy at that middle linebacker spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you heard Sammy Brown today talking to the media, said that he actually doesn't have the green dot in his helmet, so that helps them. They don't have to scramble to find somebody else to give that to now that he's going to have to be on the field with Barrett Carter a lot. Mm-hmm. But going to have to step up. I mean, that's a tough position for a freshman to really step into and make a huge impact. You can see a freshman maybe go in at wide receiver, maybe go in at a skill position, but to go in at a physical position like middle linebacker, that's some big shoes to fill. And Sammy Brown definitely has the talent to do it, definitely has the physique to do it. We'll see if he has the technique and the knowledge of the playbook to do it in the way that he needs to on that side of the ball. But the good thing is he has plenty of good pieces around him to help him out.
Yeah, and that's the one position where on that defense you didn't want Clemson to be in that kind of situation, right? Where they just really couldn't afford to, lose a person at linebacker, and now, so now Sammy moves in. He's the backup middle linebacker. Wade Woodaz and Barrett Carter are your two starters there. I think Jamal Anderson is still your Sam. But the way it looked like on the depth chart, actually Wade would move over to the Sam if they run a 4-3, and that's going to put Sammy Brown starting at middle linebacker. So if that happens, now I don't know how often Clemson's going to run the 4-3 because as you've seen, they're not running much of it. They're running more of a 4-2 right now. So and I think we're going to see a lot of that. That's just the way teams play now, and how defenses have to play. But you could. I mean, one thing we've talked about, Alex. We've noticed the way they're using they're running a lot of odd fronts up there. Yeah. I mean, you see Barrett Carter drop over and be the outside linebacker, and you'll see oh my goodness, TJ Parker slide down, in the technique, in the stance, and and he's like, in a more of a defensive tackle position out or a defensive end position in a 3-4 kind of setting, if you will. And then you got the backers that are playing more of a traditional defensive end position on the outside. So it's like they're doing a lot of different things with their front and I knew they would, being that they have Peter Woods as a defensive end. So they're trying to mix things up and give you different looks on that defensive front.
Yeah, you saw those multiple fronts really giving App State a lot of trouble on Saturday too, especially when they're running pre-snap stunts and mixing up looks. It really gave them a lot of fits, and Clemson definitely has the personnel to run those multiple fronts. We'll see what they can do with the linebacker position, how they move it around. Because it's one thing to put something on a depth chart, but when somebody gets hurt, the way you actually play it out and the way it looks on the field, sometimes it's a little bit different. So we'll have to see next weekend what that looks like.
Yeah, so if you guys want to leave a comment, Reggie's going to be on in a few minutes. You want to ask Reggie a question, please do. We'll definitely pull that question up if it's worth pulling up. We don't want to pull it up if it's something that it's not it's something your mama doesn't want you to have to be reading.
So and Deontay, we do check the comments. I see your comment. We do check them. Yeah, we get a notification every time you guys say something.
Exactly. So leave your comments. We were going to see them. And if you got a question for Reggie, please drop some questions in there. He'll be happy to answer them. We'll love it. If you got a question for me, Alex, we'll be happy to answer those as well as we, get you going here. Reggie, like I said, he'll be here in just a few minutes. Supposed to join us around 6:15. Looking forward. He'll be his first visit to the Bleav in Football Clemson podcast. So we're excited about having him on here.
We missed another injury note that came out yesterday as well. Dabo said that Caleb Nix, younger brother of Bo Nix, is going to be out for the season as well. Backup defensive back. Suffered the injury mid-game, kept playing. Dabo said they didn't find out about it until the next morning. So another young man you hate to see go down, but for him, at least you got time on the back end that you can make up for it. But shows a little bit about the kid's DNA and his toughness. Thought it was just a hyperextension, kept playing through it. Turns out to be a torn ACL.
Yeah, that's another one of those unfortunate things, and again, it's football and it's going to happen. You gotta have somebody else. And now the good news is they got a lot of guys back there at DB. They're fine. I mean, it's not going to hurt them too much in depth wise, but you hate it for him because you want him to progress as a player and get better, and maybe in a couple of years be in position. Another thing that nobody's really talked about that it could hurt Clemson a little bit in the first half against NC State is Venables is not going to play in that first half. As you know, he was tossed out of the game for targeting.
I mean, really a boneheaded
play on his part. Which,
I mean, yeah. I was at the game on Saturday. Got the chance to be back in Death Valley for the first time since I graduated, and I looked at my dad as soon as it happened, and I said, "Well, he's gone." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" He didn't even see it, but just a boneheaded boneheaded play. Ball was gone, and just took a shot at him. Something you can't do, especially in this day and age of football.
Well, as you see Sean Busby there, he's asking us, Alex, how optimistic are you guys that Clemson's offense will continue to play the way we saw on Saturday? Consistency, that is.
I think you do have to take things into account of the opponent that you're playing and the talent that you have, and especially in that secondary and in that pass rush from App State, you have to take that into account. But I do think what this Clemson offense has been missing for the last 5 years has been confidence, and you haven't seen a big breakthrough confidence game. I mean, with maybe the exception of the second half of Kentucky in the bowl game last year, you hadn't really seen 4 quarters. And you saw the Clemson offense, the starters in particular in that first half, really find that confidence. So I think if you can string that confidence into the bye week and go in with enthusiasm and optimism, like you heard Cade Klubnik talk about a couple times this year, if you see him take that into the bye week, I think it's very possible you could see it against NC State. But yeah, you got to take it with a grain of salt. I think it gave people a lot of hope. It showed you what the players are capable of, what the personnel is capable of, and what the play calling is capable of. So we'll see what comes on the field next weekend at noon. Thankfully, they get a week to think about it and process it and work through it. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, and again, we're waiting on Reggie Merriweather to join us here. So just wanted to, as far as the offense goes, I mean, I'm still under wait and see mode. I want to see consistency. I liked what I saw, though. I mean, I'll be honest, I hadn't seen that since 2019. That's the last time we saw the offense be that dominant and look that good doing it. And, we haven't seen Cade ever play like that. So now we go back. I went back and watched it, and like you said, his release points were good. He was consistent, decisive on basically every throw he made. The only throw that I thought maybe was like, don't throw that one, was the throw to Brenny Stroll, the first touchdown to Brenny Stroll.
The hip pocket touchdown.
The hip pocket touchdown. If the defensive back is looking at all on that play, it's an interception, or he at least knocks it away. That's a play I think Klubnik probably when he threw it's like, oh, maybe I want that one back. I would love to hear Cade's assessment of that play, but he got a little lucky. Sometimes luck's good though, right? And so, but overall, I was pleased with the offense. They did what they were supposed to. And the good news was that the pass set up the run.
Yeah.
And that allowed Clemson to really start running the football. And you saw Moffa go for the 83-yard touchdown after those 2 big passes. And it also puts it on tape. So, yes, App State's secondary looks very suspect. Their safety's out of position. But, you still got to make the play, and you still got to throw it. And that's going to cause defenses to now have to pay attention to that going forward. And I think that's the biggest benefit of what we saw the passing game is how it's going to be going forward. But right now, enough of me and Alex, because we're just 2 dudes that think we know football. We're going to actually talk to a guy who knows football, and that is former Clemson running back Reggie Merriweather, who's joining us now. And Reggie, welcome to Bleav in Clemson Football Podcast. This is your first time joining us, man. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing awesome. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, we can. We got you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can, man. Well, good deal. Yeah, I'm sorry about signing on so late, but yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. And how about that game Saturday? What an offensive explosion!
It was great, man. I know you're working with the Clemson Sports Radio Network, and you're there with Tim Beret and Don Munson. What's it like from your view, watching that and hearing Don's call, by the way, which were some sweet calls? With those calls he was getting to do. But what was it like for you guys to watch them finally explode?
Well, I'll tell you what, I had to dap Don up and give him a handshake because I was like, man, you're speaking into existence on that first touchdown. And I said, man, how crazy is this? Now, I obviously watching, ACC history in the first half there with, most points and most yards. But, just sitting there and then, obviously Tim with his Bible almanac on the side there trying to whip it out and see when's the last time, Clemson scored this many points, yards, and, trying to find that in his notebook there. That was pretty cool. But I mean, who knew, right? So, just a great showing from Cade Klubnik, and hoping they can keep the momentum, going. Got to stay consistent though.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex?
Yeah, joined by Reggie Merriweather. Reggie, with your background in football, what do you think this does for a team's confidence on offense? Everybody knows that confidence is such a big key. What do you think this does for them going into the bye week with a lot left to play for?
Well, see, here's the crazy thing. So, you know, you got to stay out of the comment section, right? I was telling them last week, if Wreck-It Ralph told me one thing watching that movie was never read the comments. But you gotta stay smart. You can't read your own press clippings. Just meaning that if you get caught up in the hype, you get caught up in the limelight. It's just not good for you. So it's a young wide receiver group again. What the product that they put on the field against Georgia. I think it was a complete 180. But again, you had 6 months to prepare for that team, and that's the product you put on the field. You come off that loss, and there's some big time changes that were made, and you start two freshmen, and you start push the ball downfield. And I saw plays that I never haven't seen in the last 4, 5, 6 years here at Clemson. And Cade Klubnik was perfect mostly the whole game, and just seeing the effort put forth by the kids and the wide receivers, man. I mean, even Turner, watching him go up for a couple of deep balls and a couple of out routes, and I'm like, man, where has this been? You know what I mean? So, as a school that's considered wide receiver it's been very lackluster the last few years, and I just think you have to stay consistent. You can't read your own press clippings, and you just got to keep pushing forward. And for this team, this offense specifically, I think again, you just got to get back in the lab. It's a great win. You put up 66 points, but can you be consistent? And I think that's the biggest question mark on this Clemson offense. That's why we're ranked. And we got a great team. You got a defense that's a dang Lamborghini. Just don't wreck it. You know what I mean? So, I think the question mark is on this offense. Can they be consistent, and can they put up points? So in my mind, I think it was great. But, the question mark is still there for me. If you come into ACC play in 2 weeks and you put 40, 50 points up on a decent NC State team, then okay, then I can say that. But, it was great to watch. But I just know consistency is the key, and hopefully they can do that for the rest of the season.
Former Clemson running back Reggie Merriweather joining us today. Reggie, as you were coming in, I was talking about the passing game means going forward, because now it's on tape. And Clemson even did it against Georgia. You had the long pass to Antonio Williams at one time that worked in that game. Now you got 2 games in a row where Clemson has shown they're going to throw the deep ball, and they completed it obviously several times the other night. How is that going to help Clemson's offense now as teams start to – now it's like before they could just load the box and try to stop the run. Probably won't see that as much now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, Georgia had it figured out, just like most of the teams last year. Is like, we're going to put 7, 8 guys in the box. We're going to play man-to-man on the outside. We may have a safety back there. We may not. And we're just going to dare you to beat us throwing the football. So, again, Cade Klubnik got to stay consistent. Some of the routes that he threw the Georgia game, he was underthrowing guys. And I think a lot of people were just frustrated because they've seen that all last year. But this is a kid that almost threw for 3,700 yards last year, something like that. And it was like, we know you can do it, but can you be consistent in doing it? And I think that's the biggest question mark. And on the other side of that, the running game, we know we can run the football. This is offensive line looked really good despite some of the miscues and penalties that they had the first game. They gave Klubnik a good amount of time. I mean, if that's the best defense we're going to face, all season, I think they were adequate enough to, for him to drop back and do those, 30-yard passes. So, again, they ran some deep outs, they ran some post, and for the most part, they did good. They just couldn't execute. They couldn't complete the play. And I think that was the biggest gap. But you're not going to be able to load the box anymore. But it's kind of one of those things where you're just going to have to keep proving yourself every week, because the recipe is stack the box, play man to man, and that's what Clemson does, right? So we hope the blitz gets to you first before you get the ball off. But yeah, we haven't had a great deep ball threat, and oh man, since what T Higgins,
Yeah.
Ross fell off. So it hadn't, hadn't been anybody to, for the deep ball. So hopefully that's changed. And like I said, it just got to be consistent. But I'm hopeful. You know what I'm saying? I'm really hoping that you know, and even Turner, the first game he had a couple big time drops, but he even redeemed himself this game. So
Mhm.
again, I just hope they keep momentum going. And we got a lot of guys in that wide receiver room that got a lot of passes. I think Stiletto even had a pass in that game too. So just got to be consistent, and they got to keep pushing forward. And the play calling has to be consistent as well too. So just because it didn't it didn't work the first time, don't scrub it in the playbook. You got to come back to it at some point. And I think Riley and Dabo, have a thing now where, like I said again, I saw some plays that we haven't seen in forever. And if we're going to continue to push the ball downfield, I think Dabo's going to allow him to do that as long as we continue to connect, receiver to quarterback.
Yeah, one thing I saw that was encouraging to me in the Georgia game was the plays were there.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
Cade missed on a couple, and you saw a couple wide receivers just lost the ball in
Yeah.
that light. So I wasn't and like you mentioned, the offensive line blocked. I mean, when they played Georgia a couple years ago, Georgia had 7 sacks on DJ
Yep.
Uiagalelei. They
Yep.
had 1 sack on Cade, and that was on Cade.
It was definitely,
and it was on Cade. So it wasn't the offensive line. So now we've played 2 games where Cade really hasn't been touched by the other team's defensive front or linebackers or whatever. And but he missed a couple plays in that game where he had guys that he maybe should have just took what Georgia was giving him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then I thought, obviously the receivers missed a couple plays. Not that they would have beat Georgia, but I think if they would have done some things differently, or executed a little better, it wouldn't have been as bad as it looked. I think,
Yeah.
And so I was encouraged a little bit, but I wanted to see, okay, could they make those plays? And they did that against App State. They made the plays.
And I was going to say, I think you need to address the kind of the elephant in the room when we start talking about the last few years and what production we've been getting. People blame the wide receiver coach. People blame the quarterback coach. People blame the offensive coordinator. But
people blame me.
Yeah, that's what I say. So, I think it's a culmination of things. And even offensive line, we didn't have the greatest offensive line last year or the year before. I mean, even going back to when, Travis Etienne, his last year, you had almost a 2,000-yard rusher come back, and he only had almost 1,000 yards rushing his senior season. So I think it's a culmination of things. And again, they have the right coaches in the right spots now. But again, you just got to be consistent. You got to show up every Saturday. Now, having 6 months again to prepare for that game, I thought the product would have been a little bit better, but the plays were there. We were just so inconsistent. I mean, Cole Turner almost having an interception on the play he stops running. I'm trying to think of another one too. He had a couple drops in that game. We couldn't complete any speed outs. They were just smothering us on the outside. So Cade either had to dump it down to Brenningstool, which he had a couple drops. We had a couple off the line, false starts that pushed us back, and Cade underthrew some guys. His first pass from the line of scrimmage was in the dirt. So, it just a culmination of things. So, putting up 66 points, that's all good. And people can talk about, the sample size there. Okay, it was Appalachian State, but App State's a pretty good team. So, again, you got a very good NC State team coming in here in 2 weeks. And Dave Dorian, if he knows anything, he talks about all the laptops and everything else on the sideline. So now they can have iPads. So that's legal now. But you talk about that, how good that defense was last year and the parts that they lost. But, even they look a little shaky the first couple of games. They still have some really good athletes on that team.
Mm-hmm.
But your defense is going to hold up. Now, can you score 21? Can you score 28, to put the pressure on them to – drop that pass so, Clemson's dogs can get after it on the front D line. So that's going to be my biggest, question mark is, can we be consistent? And I keep saying consistency because we've all seen it. We've all seen this offense come out and play well and then just absolutely lay an egg, the next week. They finished the season strong last year with the 5 wins. They had a comeback win in the against Kentucky, and knowing that we should run them off 30 times a game every game. But if you have a passing attack like we did on Saturday, you can air it out and you can get those guys back off the ball. So that'll open up the running game. So, like I said, I'm hopeful. I just want to see these guys continue to show effort, continue to go out there and just play their hearts out. So.
Reggie, I'm good with a game that's played in the dirt all day as well.
Yeah.
But it was good to see the passing game. Reggie, how do you kind of, as a former player, as a broadcaster, how would you keep the season in perspective so far? Obviously, it's 2 games. You played the number 1 team in America, and you played a G5 at home. Just how do you kind of keep the season in perspective going into bye week?
Well, there's a lot of football on TV, and man, there's a lot of teams that went down this past week. I think the biggest fumble of the season was NIU and Notre Dame. I mean, you talk about reading your press clippings and listen to talking heads on ESPN. You're a 28, almost 29-point favorite, and you come out and you lose on a late field goal. You got dominated in the trenches, and if one thing about Dabo is I like, man, he's never going to let guys get complacent. He's going to coach when they're up by 100, and he's going to coach when they're down by 100. So I think he's going to keep them level-headed. I think the biggest thing is for this team to continue to build on success is just trusting in each other, continue to watch film, and just be just don't be complacent where you're at. So again, you're ranked in the top 20. I think they're ranked 22 now, something like that. So they're up 3 spots from where they were last week. But you know where you want to go. That's on Dabo's list of things, right? You have your finish the season, win the state rivalry, win the ACC, all that type stuff. So on your goals list, that has to be win the next game. That's got to be on your top priority. So again, he's not going to let them falter in any way. But again, you get caught up in your limelight, your press clippings, and then you stop working. So they still got a long way to go.
Hey, Reggie, we have some fans to ask some questions for you. Reggie Merriweather, former Clemson running back, joining us here. So we got Deontay Brownlee wants to ask you, was Georgia really that much better than Clemson? He says, my friends think I'm crazy. What would your answer on that be? Do you think do you think Georgia's that much better?
So I will say this. I don't think they're that much better. And the reason why I say that is they have a couple of key players and key spots that Clemson may not have. But for the most part, Clemson's got some dogs too, and obviously that showed in the halftime score. Now, second half, Dabo Swinney used to be the king of halftime adjustments, and obviously we did not adjust at halftime like we should have. But that's no excuse. And again, UGA got some of their star players out one-on-one, got them in motion, got them, able to get them down the field, get them some passes, and they broke tackles, and that's just kind of how it is when you have the Jimmies and Joes. But for the most part, I think that we could hang with a Georgia, we could hang with a Notre Dame, Ohio State, a Michigan. Can we play with Tennessee? Yes, of course. Now, the war of attrition and in the trenches and injuries and all that type stuff may play a factor because I don't think we're that deep on most positions. But again, I think from a coaching standpoint and the number one offense and defense, I think we can play with anybody in the country. And that's just not me drinking the Clemson Kool-Aid. I just think we're well coached and we've got enough talent on the outside and in the trenches to play some of these bigger teams.
Casey Crowder wanted to ask you on the offensive line, to review the offensive line through 2 games. Your thoughts on them?
Well, I would give them probably a B-. I think, again, like you said, that sack was okay during that game. They didn't give up any really big-time plays. Now, they had some false starts and some miscues, but, I mean, it's the first game jitters. You're playing the number 1 team in the country, so you're going to have some of that. Now, this second game, I would probably give them an A+ just for the simple fact, man, they could do anything they wanted to. They picked up blitzes. They did just everything. They gave Cade a lot of time in the pocket. And, just watching them, all the miscues that they had last week, stepping the wrong way, blocking the wrong guy, that didn't happen this week. Now, I don't know if that's just because they, got the ball off fast or they weren't blitzing that much, but they looked like a complete unit that's been together for, a couple years. But they actually really look good. So, I give them a B- for the Georgia game and an A+ for App State.
Reggie, kind of looking ahead past the bye week, this NC State team, obviously they came out and kind of faltered against Western Carolina, struggled to find a rhythm, and then everybody knows what happened last week against Tennessee. What do you kind of see from this NC State team, a matchup that's looking now a lot different than it did in the preseason?
Oh man, I don't know. They got the Concepcion kid, and that's about it on offense. He is their go-to guy. I want to say he's like the Swiss Army knife, man. He could probably play running back too if they needed to, but he plays all the wideout positions. He plays slot. They have him in motion, running screens, running outs, running bubbles. He does everything for them. So as far as a offensive standpoint, I think that's the only guy they have. Now they lost a lot of guys on defense last year. What is the linebacker number 11? When he
Nate
like
Wilson.
when he like that ACC the defensive player of the year or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
I mean that kid was out of all the games that I watched last year, he was probably the most active as a defensive player. And he almost reminds me of like Barrett Carter because he was on every tackle. He was in every play. He was a ball hawk. Not only was he, a great blitzer, but he was great in pass coverage too. So, obviously he got drafted, so he's a big time player. But, I think they lost a lot of guys. They lost a corner. They lost him and a couple of interior D linemen. So, like you said, going back to that first game they played with Western Kentucky, I was like, man, they're either sleeping or they just hadn't hit the gas yet. And then they pulled away at the end of the game, but they got absolutely throttled by Tennessee. And I'm surprised nobody's talking about that. They talk about us getting beat by 30 at Georgia. But, my goodness, Tennessee gave them basically all they wanted. And, that's it's rough. It's rough to watch because you think, okay, Dave Doering's a pretty good coach, but they got beat in every facet of the game, special teams, offense, defense, and they just got manhandled in the trenches. So again, I think that that NC State team still is good. They have some athletes, but they have some scheme problems, just like Clemson does. But I Bleav in the trenches, we probably have the advantage. And then I think as far as secondary and wide receivers, we probably have the advantage. So again, I think it's going to be a classic game. NC State versus NC State, but I'm putting my money on Clemson, especially in the second half, to kind of open things up. And this is not didn't look like a very well disciplined Dave Doering NC State team against Tennessee. They had a bunch of miscues, interceptions, that type of stuff. So they had a rough game. Could they bounce back? Probably not. I mean, we have 2 weeks to kind of prepare and the bye week. So, like I said, I'm putting my money on Clemson to probably win that one by 21+.
And they have a tough game this week. They got to play Louisiana Tech, who, yes, they should win it. But like we just saw, like you mentioned, the Western Carolina game earlier, they didn't look very good in that game. And this is a Louisiana Tech team that plays with a lot of confidence. They definitely did when Billy Napier was down there. And they feel like they could go and beat anybody. They're 1-0 right now. They've only played one game. So they're going to be a team that it's not a guaranteed win. And so NC State's got to play that game before they can get to Clemson. Do you want to get your assessment on their quarterback from what you saw in the two games that they've played? The former Coastal Carolina quarterback, and how is he handling? Do you think he's handling the bigger stage?
He doesn't look good. And I don't know if it's just first game jitters against Western Carolina. He was missing guys wide open. He was throwing balls in the dirt, and his wide receivers really weren't helping him out either. But I mean, it could be just something that he's just getting settled in. So, the more you play, obviously, the better you are. Like I was thinking about Brandon Ayuk just now missing that big time receiving touchdown last night. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you get in camp, you get with a quarterback and you learn to work out those wrinkles. And, I don't know if he was there all summer, if he was like a game time decision. Hey, we need a quarterback. Let's get him out the portal. I don't know. But it seems like they're having some gel issues there on offense. And, for them to, be a great team, they're going to have to fix that. Like I said, again, I hope they fix it after 2 weeks from now. But yeah, that's the thing that I saw, man. I mean, he's a great quarterback, man. He's got a cannon. But a lot of times too, man, guys are dropping balls, or he was either underthrowing them or overthrowing them, and that's just a timing thing, man. Getting used to your guys.
Yeah, fix it in week 5. That's
yeah,
just don't need to fix it in week 4. I want to ask you real fast before you get out here with the ACC. Everybody's saying it's a wide open conference. I still don't think it is. I still think it's a 2-team conference. I think Miami definitely kind of showed what they could be when they went down to the Swamp. And then the best thing about Miami was come back the next week and take care of business against a team they should destroy. They did that the very next week, and so they're playing a little consistent. Ward seems like he's the guy that kind of the field general, and I really like the way he commands the team and runs that offense. Then I think Clemson is the other team right now. I still say Clemson's got the best roster in the ACC, and if they do like they did the other night, if they even do half of that, I think Clemson's going to be in the ACC championship game. What are your thoughts on the conference so far after 3 weeks?
No, I totally agree with you. I think ACC gets a bad rap, obviously, for the first 2 weeks. But, you got beat by some not good teams, and then you get blown out. Clemson got blown out by Georgia. And then next week, like I said, NC State got blown out by Tennessee. But look at every other conference. I mean, like I said, again, the SEC is so top-heavy too. Michigan ended up losing to Texas. I mean, it's anybody's game right now, so early in the season. But like I said, I'll take Clemson, to be back in Charlotte, and I'll take Miami or either Pitt. Pitt looked pretty good, but I think Miami has everything now. You talk about they went in the portal, they got a quarterback. They ended up getting a couple of wide receivers. They got a couple of defensive players, but they look like the most complete team to me. And I don't know if that's more of a shot at Florida, looking at them and how they played, and they didn't look good at all. They don't have a quarterback either. So, or a couple other teams around it. I mean, you get to bring a new quarterback in, and it kind of changes the dynamic of everything. But if you don't have a good quarterback, like I said again, you're going to struggle. And you look at Georgia Tech too. I thought Georgia Tech was, they got a same quarterback coming back, and they got 4 starters coming back on that offensive line. I thought they were going to be peak Georgia Tech this year, and give some competition, make it like a 3 or 4 team run. But yeah, not the same. But yeah, I like Miami and I like Clemson to be in the ACC championship. But there's a couple other teams out there that are showing some really good grit, man. Like Tony Elliott in Virginia. I mean, they look really good. They got that quarterback is his second year as a starter. I think he started a couple games last year. So, they're kind of getting into their groove. I think Pitt is going to be okay this year. I don't know what happened to Virginia Tech. I just don't know what's going on with them. But like I said, man, you got some really good quarterbacks still in this league, and you got some really good teams. But only time will tell. Like I said, again, it's kind of war of attrition, right? You got to stay healthy. You've got to get past your schedule, and then the teams with the 2 best records in conference, we'll see each other in Charlotte. So I'm excited about it. Like I said, again, I hope this Clemson can be consistent and keep on pushing forward.
I guess you got Boston College and Syracuse. So the 2 you talked about quarterback play. They definitely have 2 very good quarterbacks.
I forgot about Syracuse. I watched them the other night, man. Yeah. Ooh, that head coach of theirs too, man. Look, they did good in that hire because, like I said again, Dino Babers was a great coach, and this kid that they got now, I'll say kid, but the young man that they have now, that he's a spark plug, and he is exactly what they need. He's got those boys playing on all 8 cylinders, and they are physical, and they're going to play tough every down.
Yeah, and they got a quarterback that can make some plays.
And they got a quarterback. Yep.
Yeah, wanted to ask you one more too, Reggie, before you run out of here. As a former player in your playing days, is there any memory that stands out in particular from playing NC State when you were donning the orange and white back in the day?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, this is one of my first games starting, and I only played like 2 quarters. I think the rest I was on the sideline with Band-Aids on my face. So anyways, I ended up getting tackled. This was 2000 and I think it was 5, maybe 2004 or 5, and ended up running a play. It was like a sweep or something like that. Anyways, I ended up getting tackled by 3 or 4 people in the backfield. And then the next thing you know, my helmet got knocked down and my nose got cut. And then I had 2 hands in my face mask, like trying to gouge my eyes out. So I ended up, obviously getting up all battered and bruised and going back to the sideline, and I'm bleeding from the face. And they was like, "Oh man, you okay?" I was like, "No, no." And so that next week, I had a visor on, and they ended up having to take pictures of me of the, basically all my war wounds there, and I think they turned it into like the ACC commission or something like that. I was like, "Man, look what they did." And but yeah, my mom was like, "Hey, you got beat up out there." Oh yeah, but no, we had some great times, and I was like, Carter Finley Stadium is one of the stadiums I still hate to this day. Obviously, Maryland is one that I still hate to this day, but it's great competition. Man, we played with some great guys from there, right? So, you think about Phillip Rivers, right? And then I was trying to think of the great running back that they had there when we played. And obviously a defensive line, I can't remember his name, is number 9. He ended up going to the league too, first-round draft pick. They had some great players, man. They had some great ballers there at NC State up in Raleigh. So, I definitely missed the game, but I'm glad I'm up in the booth being able to watch it and talk about it and obviously do things like this. So, like I said, I appreciate you guys for having me on, and I'm looking forward to another big-time game. If we could do what we did on Saturday against NC State, I think all the talking heads will be back in our favor. And like Dabo said, if Clemson is a stock, you better start buying it now. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. He's probably going to put that on a T-shirt too.
Yeah. Oh, you can see it coming. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can definitely see it coming. Well, Reggie, thanks so much for joining us, my friend. I appreciate you, man. Always good to see you in the press box. Everybody can listen to you on game days, right? You're going to be what time do you come on the air with Don and them? Usually for
I used to do the pre-game, but now I'm just on when kickoff is. So it gives me a little time to get to the stadium because I'm usually late.
Well, that's good. Yeah. So listen to Reggie with Don and Tim Beret for every Clemson football game. He's at every one of them, whether on the road or not. And so travels with the team. I see Reggie in the press box with me all the time as we're getting some of that good food, right, Reggie? That's
yeah. Yeah, it's always a challenge to find something that fits in my macros there for sure.
Absolutely. All right, Reggie, thanks so much for joining us, man. Well, I'll see you over in the press box in a couple weeks here.
Yes, sir. Will do. Thank you, guys. See you.
Appreciate it, Reggie.
All right, see you
later. That was Reggie Merriweather. What a great interview, man. What a great guy. One of my favorites, man. I enjoyed covering him back in the day when he was a player. I remember that game, by the way, he talked about where he got his face all beat up. I remember that game very well. That was my first year covering Clemson. So I can't believe it's been that long since Reggie played, man. I mean, he finished in 06.
Yeah, I was knee-high to a grasshopper, but I still remember everybody chanting Reggie in Death Valley.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. I just can't believe it. I remember the Miami game down in the Orange Bowl. He played a big role in that win, that come from behind win for Clemson. I believe they trailed 17-0 in that game, and they came back and won 24-17 in overtime. Unbelievable, And Reggie, I think, scored 2 touchdowns, and if I'm not mistaken, he scored the winning touchdown. If I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yeah, somebody in here was asking if Reggie has any availability left, so he can get 2 or 3 touchdowns. Maybe he has a COVID year in there somewhere. Who knows?
I didn't want to mention it. Maybe we'll get him on for the South Carolina game later, but I didn't want to mention, talked about how dirty guys are in those piles, and that's that 04 South Carolina game. Speaking of being dirty in the pile, that's what started the brawl. A lot of people think it was the other way around, but Williamson was just retaliating the way his buddy was getting abused by the Gamecock defensive lineman on that previous drive before that put the game away. Anyway, but we won't get into that.
If he brings it up, we'll talk about it. But if he doesn't bring it up, we won't talk about it.
Yeah, we won't get into that. Anyway, so but that was awesome. Great interview. Appreciate Reggie Merriweather being here. You guys, like I said, listen to him on the Clemson Sports Network when the Tigers play. I know one person on here said that they'd love to they said they appreciated him being on here, and when the games are on TV, they mute the sound and listen to the roar. And Reggie and Tim and Don Munson. So, which Alex, I think that's what you do too, is what, right?
Yeah, that's what I do. Football season, baseball season, basketball season, it doesn't matter. I'd rather listen to those guys than some of these other guys. There's some guys I like too. Don't get me wrong. There's some TV broadcasters I like, but
I know the ones we don't like.
There's some that I don't like, but we're not going to go into that either.
No,
we can go into that off chat. Yeah.
When we get off the air, we'll go into that. Well, Alex, I wanted to ask, we got a few minutes here before we get off here. Notre Dame, Reggie mentioned it there. Me and you talked about it. I think you asked me the last time, was Notre Dame for real? Did I think they were? And I told you I thought they were not. I didn't think they were a college football playoff team. I like to say that I'm right because Northern Illinois went into South Bend, as Reggie said, as a 28.5-point underdog and knocked off the Irish 16-14 in a game that really could have been bigger than that, because I think Northern Illinois blew some opportunities.
Absolutely. And let's also point out that, the officials gifted Notre Dame an extra 30 seconds on that third and 2, where the running back just piled through the Notre Dame defensive line to get the first down. They marked them about 1.5 yards short, but it didn't end up mattering. But that kind of encapsulates what happened in the football game. Reggie mentioned it. I mean, Northern Illinois went into Notre Dame Stadium and dominated the Irish in the trenches. That was the difference in the game. If you look back a week ago, Notre Dame did the same thing to Texas A&M, right. And really, lived with that identity of being the dominant team in the trenches. But I don't know if they woke up on the wrong side of the bed in South Bend, if it was a little crisp in the air, maybe they weren't feeling it, maybe they're a little sore from the trip to Cal State. I don't know what it was, but they didn't have the same juice in the trenches. And the Huskies, they went in there ready to play. Huge win for that program. Man, it was awesome seeing the coach getting interviewed after the game, crying. Just the emotion and passion that he had for his team was great to see. But Marcus Freeman, that's 2 losses to Group of 5 opponents in Notre Dame Stadium in his tenure. If you remember, they lost to Marshall, and now they've lost to Northern Illinois, and that's not a recipe for success in one of, if not the most historic program in college football.
And by the way, we didn't hear from our friend Matt at all.
He did text me about something unrelated, and I responded to him and said, "Hey man, I'm surprised your phone's working this week."
We got a buddy of ours who covers Notre Dame. That's we all give each other hard times, and so it was his.
He gives us a hard time too about everything.
About everything. So especially Alex,
especially me.
Anyway, let's before we get out of here too, let's talk about the ACC just a little bit. This week's going to be a big week for a couple teams. Florida State hosting Memphis at home. As I mentioned earlier, Louisiana Tech is going to Raleigh to play NC State. Do I dare say these are must wins for those two teams, Florida State and NC State?
Oh, I mean, I don't
these
think
are games they could lose. Let's be honest. There's a chance they could lose these games.
I don't even think that it's a question that they're must win games for both teams, especially for Florida State. I mean, goodness gracious, if Memphis goes in there and beats its old coach in front of 50,000 people in Doak Campbell Stadium, and they start the season 0-3, man, things have soured now. You think things have soured now, and man, it's gonna turn in a hurry. If they don't take care of business. And honestly, if they don't take care of business convincingly against a really good Group of 5 opponent.
And they got a dilemma there because the fans want to see the other quarterback, the freshman. And I get that and I understand that. But somebody ponied up like $1.5 million for DJ Uiagalelei. And so if you're Coach Norvell, you got to make a decision. Like, do you go with the younger guy who's your future that you can develop now? Or do you have to bring in the guy and keep playing the guy that because somebody played him? And then how long do you go with DJ? If DJ comes out and struggles, in this game, do you yank him and bring in the freshman at that point to play? I mean, what do you do?
I mean, I think you have to. I think the guy that gave the $1.5 million would probably tell Mike Norvell that he has to if it starts out the way.
You're about losing an investment. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, but the way that it's been going, it's been ugly. What was he got? 1 touchdown pass and 1 interception. I mean, it's like he hadn't even played. And he's played 2 games, 2 conference games that they lost. And you talk about getting dominated in the trenches. That's what Boston College did to him. And boy, it was ugly.
What does Memphis like to do?
They like to run the football.
They like to run the ball. Now, the good news is they don't have a quarterback that can hurt them like Georgia Tech and Boston College have. They don't have that running kind of quarterback, but they like to run the football nonetheless. And Florida State right now is dead last in the ACC against the run. So that's going to be interesting. NC State against Louisiana Tech on Saturday. Both those games are noon, by the way, so you know what we'll be doing.
Watching them at 10 a.m. is what we're going to be doing. Will's taking the trip out to Colorado this weekend for bye week. We're going to go to the Steelers-Broncos game on Sunday. Will's going to go to 2 Steelers road games in 1 year. Back to back. So we're looking forward to that. But definitely going to have our
Steelers home game with the Ravens when I go cover the Pitt game.
Exactly.
In November. So I'll get 3 Steeler games. First time ever, 3 Steeler games in the same season.
But we're definitely going to have our eyes locked on those games on Saturday. Another thing I kind of want to bring up, get your thoughts on is College Game Day. What are your thoughts on their decision this weekend to go to Columbia?
I'm a little surprised. You got Alabama, Wisconsin going on. What other big games you got going on around the country? Let me look at the national.
It's not the best week for games, but it's definitely a kind of an interesting
Boston College, Missouri. I mean, I get it. That's not a big TV game, but neither is South Carolina, LSU. Notre Dame, Purdue could be interesting. Georgia, Kentucky, no, that'll be a blowout. By the way, how many points does Georgia beat Kentucky by? And how many points does Kentucky score? I'm going to say none.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were thinking that College Game Day was going to go to Lexington for Georgia, Kentucky, if Kentucky won the game, and then South Carolina won and dominated, and really threw a monkey wrench into ESPN's plans. And that's kind of what the last second decision. But hey, good for the Gamecock fans, man. I'm sure it'll be a great environment.
First time in 10 years, they said, right?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
I can't believe it's been 10 years. I can't believe it's been that long since they've been down there. But I guess they really haven't had many good teams down there. It makes sense. And they're off to a 2-0 start. Carolina fans, they think they can win this game.
I mean,
they've been saying it all summer that they're going to beat LSU.
If they do, it really changes the narrative around the program early in the year, because a lot of people are thinking they'd be sitting here at 1-2, especially after that Old Dominion game. Speaking of which, Virginia Tech goes to ODU this weekend. I don't know why they keep doing that.
Tech going to Old Dominion again.
How many times are they
scheduling these things?
How many times are they going to do that? You figure Frank Beamer would have drove up there and told them, what the hell are you doing by now?
You're Virginia Tech. You don't go to Old Dominion. I mean, you're a program that's played for national championships. You've won ACC championships. You won Big East championships back in the day. You don't go play at Old Dominion. Old Dominion should come to you. Whoever is scheduling that should be fired. This
is a weekend that, you look at the slate and you don't think the games are going to be that good. But this could be one of those weekends that happens at the beginning of every football season that kind of surprises you. Where you have some barn burners you weren't expecting, you have some upsets you weren't expecting. So I'm kind of interested to see what happens while we're sitting somewhere with like 15 televisions on Saturday morning.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man, just to watch football and not have to work and just watch football. That's my favorite. So we're going to watch football all day Saturday. We're going to go to watch football before the Steelers game, get done with that, and then watch Sunday night football after that if we go get something to eat after the game. So we're going to be watching football, man, all weekend.
Rachel's going to be ready for you to leave.
Rachel's going to hate me after the weekend's over. There's no doubt. That's Alex's wife, Rachel. By the way, hello, Rachel. Real quick before we get out of here, some other games, other ACC games real fast. Wanted to just, Miami hosting Ball State. I think that they'll take care of business there. I think probably the big game in the conference is not a conference game, but it involves a conference team. West Virginia going to 2-0 Pittsburgh, who's had back-to-back come from behind wins with a freshman quarterback leading the way for the Panthers.
How many times do you see that at the Power 4 level now?
Yeah, exactly. So and then you mentioned Virginia Tech, Old Dominion, Ole Miss and Wake Forest. Ooh, that is okay. Ole Miss scored 70 points on Furman.
They might score 80 on Wake Forest. Sorry, Dave Clawson.
it probably another conference game or interconference game. Maryland, which used to be a conference game and used to be a rivalry.
Yep.
Maryland going to Virginia. They're laying 2.5 points. I think Virginia can win this game.
It's
Do
a
I
big
dare
game.
say Tony Elliott starts 3-0 to the season?
It's a big game for Tony Elliott, just to breathe some life into that program and get people hopeful and optimistic. And if you go out and beat an old rival like Maryland, two of the more elite upper echelon type ACC programs from back in the day, if Virginia's able to win that game, then that would do a lot for them.
And then lastly, another team, and it's hard to say this is. I would think this would be a Pac-12 game, but California, surprisingly, at 2-0.
Who we haven't talked about.
Yeah, they went to Auburn and won. Got the ACC a win at Auburn.
ACC legend Cal with the big win over the SEC program.
Exactly. They came south and said, "We don't care about your Southern football. We're going to beat Auburn." And but they got San Diego State 1-1. They have an opportunity with this home game to get off to a 3-0 start. I thought they were a bowl team. A lot of people laughed at me. They'll be halfway there if they win this game on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. As a Cal, man, I don't think anybody expected it. Paul Feinbaum actually said on his radio show that there's no shot that Cal goes and beats Auburn and that you could bookmark it.
And that just told you how much Paul Feinbaum knows about football.
So Peyton Thorne, I mean, Auburn's got some real issues with Peyton Thorne and Hugh Freeze. You talked about something sour, and a lot of people weren't happy with the hire to begin with, and they're definitely not happy now.
Well, remember, he wanted NC State's quarterback, but help me out with the kid's name at NC State.
Grayson McCall. But Grayson wasn't able to get in to school, so he went to Raleigh instead. I mean, that's a true story. That's what happened. So maybe that's part of the problem. I don't know. I wonder how different Grayson McCall would be if he went to Auburn as opposed to what we've seen at NC State. I don't know, but obviously different schemes, how they do things, and pieces are better. Pieces are better.
Yeah,
that's the other thing with Auburn that I think people are so disappointed in is they have these dynamic receivers that were so hyped in the offseason, and you got a quarterback that can't get it to them. I mean, that's just the reality. A quarterback that would prefer to throw it to the other team.
And by the way, North Carolina, they play North Carolina Central. They can move to 3-0 playing with their backup quarterbacks because, Max Johnson's out for the entire season. By the way, he said he's coming back next year to play, so he'll get his 10th season in college football. Because, I mean, what's he been, 6 or 7 now already?
Yeah.
I mean,
he's gonna be quarterback emeritus. That's what I was gonna say about Peyton Wilson earlier. I thought Dave Doran just said he could keep playing forever. As he was at NC State so long. Another game I'm kind of intrigued. I'm intrigued to see what SMU does this weekend. Oh, man, a rough showing. But Rhett Lashley came out and said they're changing quarterbacks. They're going to go to the guy that finished the year last year, see if they can get things moving in the right direction on Saturday.
Well, they got Florida State next week. So at Florida, they got Florida State. Right? Am I right on that? Don't they have Florida State
at
next
home?
Week? Looking at my schedule. Why isn't it showing? It's not showing. Maybe it's the week after that they got Florida State. But anyway,
it's barreling down.
Yeah, it's barreling down. So they interested to see what they do and how that happens because they lost a game that nobody thought they'd lose. You're like, well, what does your pick for SMU look like now? I'm like, hey, they still haven't played a conference game yet, so I'm still good. So they lost to TCU, right? They got pounded by TCU. Not surprised by that though. Anyway,
they lost to BYU last week.
BYU last week. Okay, I am surprised by that. So TCU this week.
Yep.
Then okay, yeah, big game for them.
It's like it was talk about a rock fight. That game was a rock fight. 2 scores for each team and just nothing really doing. So,
well, 2 weeks, 2 very lackluster performances by the Mustangs. So not a good start in their ACC debut season. Anyway, all right, buddy, we're going to get out of here. I know you got stuff to do, and I as well. We appreciate all you guys joining us today. We appreciate Reggie Merriweather for joining us. That was a great interview. If you didn't get a chance to see it, you can go back and watch it on our TCI's YouTube channel. You can also watch it on TCI's Facebook channel as well, or you can go and download my podcast, the Bleav in Clemson Football podcast, and listen to it in your car or on your radio or wherever you find your music. You can go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and more. So check that out for us. Appreciate everybody with us. Alex, I appreciate you. For Alex Dodd, I'm Will Vandervoort. We'll talk to you next time on Bleav in Clemson Football.